Connie Hagar, Life History of a Texas Birdwatcher. Written by Karen McCracken. Reviewed by Pam Stranahan. This book will persuade you to get outdoors and observe the birds. Connie Hagar's enthusiasm for nature and birdwatching is infectious. Karen McCracken did an excellent job of capturing Connie's story. Karen moved to Rockport as a reporter and as a novice birder was tutored by Connie. Later, McCracken realized that Connie's story should be told. In the summer of 1962, Connie agreed to a series of interviews. Martha Conger Neblett was born in 1886. She grew up in a genteel family in Corsicana, Texas, where her father was a judge and her mother managed the household in the style of a Southern belle. Her younger brother gave her the nickname Connie when he was learning to talk. Connie attended Fort Park College in St. Louis, and she studied piano, voice, which she enjoyed her whole life. After a frustrating marriage to a sailor, Connie left him and returned to Corsicana. She stepped off the train loaded down with a suitcase, a bird cage, and a dog. As she set off for home, a stranger stepped up and said, "Let me help you." He had already taken the suitcase before she replied, "I am Mrs. Lynn Brooks of New Orleans, come home to care for my invalid mother." Her escort grumbled, "Might have known you would be a Mrs. Somebody. All nice women seem to be married." But Jack Hagar was undaunted, and he returned to the Neblett household to court Connie for 5 years before they were married. Connie's best friend was her sister, Bert. They formed a nature study club in 1922. In pursuit of their studies, they visited Rockport for a month in 1933 to learn more about the coast. They then returned in 1934 for 5 months. After the sisters' extended trip to Rockport, Connie convinced Jack to move to Rockport, where they bought the Rockport Cottages on Church Street in 1935. Connie was fascinated by the birds in the wild. Every day after breakfast with Jack, she and her dog visited 9 locations where the birds might be. She made the rounds again in the afternoons, taking copious notes. She was setting a new standard for ornithology. Others in the field were studying stuffed birds, while she observed them in the wild. She began writing a column for the Corpus Christi newspaper, and other birders became aware of her sightings. Connie spent many hours lecturing to adults and children alike. As a result, folks around town brought her birds to heel and let her know if hunters had downed protected species. Texas Parks and Wildlife Department noted her efforts with signage at Little Bay. Jack was innkeeper at the cottages, but also kept things light. One day when Connie returned from her morning rounds, he brought a couple over and introduced them to her. "Darling, these bird watchers would like to see a yellow-rumped, shirt-sleeved Hagar bird. Folks, this is my wife, Pure Nuts." Connie and Jack enjoyed the birders who came to town, and many stayed at the cottages. They even became lifelong friends with ornithologists who had doubted her early reports. But Jack did not like it when someone questioned Connie's reports. After a written exchange with Dr. Oberholster of the Department of Agriculture, Connie reported to Jack, "He seemed to doubt that I saw a sooty shearwater." Jack's reply, "Nobody can question my wife's word. Throw that letter in the wastebasket and never write him again." Later, when Oberholzer requested a cabin in anticipation of visiting, Jack said, "Can't do it. We're all booked with nice people." Roger Tory Peterson, however, was one who appreciated her records and invited her to collaborate on his guide for the birds of this area. Other experts returned to go birding with Connie, and McCracken's story brings you into the Hagar circle of friends. Connie's fame as a citizen scientist spread nationally when Life magazine sent their top photographer, Alfred Eisenstadt, to photograph her. When she greeted him at the door in her lilac frock with a matching lilac sweater, he was miffed. He asked, "Don't you have something to wear that's more suitable for the outdoors?" So she led him to her closet so he could select an outfit. Though not pleased because he found no shorts, no slacks, no pants of any kind, he chose a charcoal cotton dress with a white collar. He got his shots like this one in her living room and returned to New York City after one day. The 1946 magazine brought Connie fame and even more visitors. While Connie spent a lot of time outdoors, she wasn't the picture of health. She had glaucoma early, which frightened her into following the doctor's advice of drinking 3 beers a day. Later, high blood pressure plagued her. She became less active after Jack's death in 1962, so the National Audubon Society arranged to bring their annual meeting to Corpus Christi in order to honor her. The plaque presented to Connie read, "You opened our eyes to that great miracle of the natural world, the migration of birds. You enriched our knowledge by patient, open-minded, and courageous observation and reporting of facts, so many of them at first unbelievable. You stood so straight among the wind-bent trees of your coast that you saw what others before you have failed to see." Every year during the Rockport-Fulton Hummingbird Celebration, we mount an exhibit at the History Center. Birders who enjoy our gardens also learn about Connie's dedication to recording the hummer migration. A site that honors Connie year-round is the Connie Hagar Cottage Sanctuary at Church and First Streets in South Rockport. Signage there tells the story of the Hagars, the cottages, the birds, and native plants. Come visit to learn more about this remarkable woman.